Ladies, gentlemen, everyone in between, welcome to Talking at 6. I'm your host, 1-6, a.k.a. Velvet Von Black, dropping them fat stacks, a.k.a. Dr. Satan, stay hating, a.k.a. Funky Monkey, Nasty Monkey. Actually, he's a gorilla. A.k.a. Can't fight, a.k.a. Zombie Nazis standing at a wall now, a.k.a. Susie X, a.k.a. Why'd you have to rip off Carrie, a.k.a. All the sudsy powers of hell, a.k.a. That soundtrack is epic, a.k.a. Less spooky, more spoopy, a.k.a. R-rated Looney Tunes, a.k.a. Hey, listen here, bitch, don't mind. Today's episode I'll be discussing / partially reviewing, I guess, kind of, technically, a little bit, just a wee bit, the animated film, The Haunted World of SuperBeasto, which is directed by and based on the comics book series by Rob Zombie, in which, basically, it's SuperBeasto is a kind of secret agent. He's like he's a man of action. He calls himself as a man of action, which is basically like superhero / secret agent / luchador. Like, he wears a luchador mask, and I guess I've never read, just to be clear, I've never read the comics, but I guess like it's kind of hinted at. So I guess like it's kind of hinted at in the intro to the movie, like his background, the theme song gives some of his backstory, and I guess at one point he was a luchador, or like is part of it. But it's also like he was like dropped off on his parents' doorstep as a baby. Like, he was adopted by the parents of Susie X. So Susie X is his sister, who's also a spy. But it's kind of funny because like as a baby, when he was dropped off as a baby, he already had the luchador mask on, and so it's never fully like talked about or explained. It's just, yeah, he had a luchador mask. Also, Susie X, when she was little, she had an eye. Susie X has an eye patch, and even when she was little, she had an eye patch on. She already had the eye patch on. And it's never like fully explained, but it is like mentioned in her theme song, like, which does some of her back, like does go through her backstory. And it's like, what is up with your eye? Like, it is never explained. They never fully explain it, but it's like the only time it's referenced that she just has an eye patch. And it's honestly like, overall, like, the whole movie is like pretty, like, really funny. It's really comedic. It's like set in this basically a monster world. It's like, kind of reminds me of like Halloween Town, the Disney movie Halloween Town, if you've ever seen that, or just like kind of like Nightmare Before Christmas-ish, like era of like, there's humans in this world, but there's also like, there's a bunch of monsters, and just like, there's a lot of callbacks or like just cameos from like horror movie monsters, or just like slashers in general. Like, at one point, Beasto's driving and like he hits Michael Myers with his car, and he like gets stuck on the windshield, and he's like trying to get him off with the wipers, and it's just funny. And it's like, Beasto goes to a bar, like this bar he goes to, like, he goes to drink, and like he's hanging out with like werewolves and like vampires, and like Jack Nicholson's character from The Shining's there, and it's just like, it's just all these like at one point the oh god, what is it, Xenomorph from Aliens is there, like the chest burster busts out of his like alien's chest when his drink comes, and like he's just sitting there like hanging out the guy's chest drinking a beer, and it's just like, it's all funny, like, it's all like, it's kind of gory, it's kind of graphic, kind of intense, but it's never like, none of it's actually ever played up to be like legit scary. Like, it's all played off as a joke. Like, the whole thing is kind of just a parody of like horror movies and stuff. Like, not direct like horror movie parody, but like all these things are like kind of played for the comedic effect of it. Like, it's like all these characters that are like, normally supposed to be scary characters, but they're played up for laughs, and they're played more comedically, like way less serious. There's no like real seriousness to them. Like, and it's all joking and like, basically played up for laughs. But like, the whole thing is like, Beasto is like, he's like, oh yeah, it's like, I'm the greatest, blah blah blah, I'm so good at what I do. But he's also like, he's kind of like Archer, but like more in the what's the word I'm looking for? Like, not necessarily a sellout, but more, and it's like, I guess kind of a sellout, but like, because like in branding and stuff, like at one point, like, he was sitting in the bar, this ad he has for a shampoo he has comes up on the TV or whatever, and like while he's trying to flirt with this lady at the bar, he's like, oh yeah, oh look at that, would you look at that, I'm so embarrassed. Like, it's this ad of him selling shampoo, but it's like, it's none of the things he does he's actually good at. Like, he's like just super strong, and he like beats people, like he beats the villain senseless and stuff, but he's also just terrible at it. Like, he knows he's terrible at planning. Like he can't follow through on a plan on anything. He just completely wings everything, and he's also kind of just a giant idiot. Like he just like all the time it's like him. He's just like literally like if the problem can't just be solved by him punching it, like he's not gonna be the one to solve it. But he'll be there. He might end up just getting super lucky and things will happen. But it's funny because like it's like clearly like his backstory, like it shows like a spiral because he got like in the booze and like women and drugs and stuff, and it's just like this shows like how he like at some point was really competent and really good at what he does, and then he's just like slowly been on a downhill spiral and it's like been falling off super hard because like so him and Susie are both like secret agents almost basically like same or in the same line of work. And it's just like at one point she calls out like, "Oh, hey, look, it's like, have I ever steered you wrong?" It's like she just goes on this like 5 minute rant of like, oh, he just keeps listing off all these missions where like he was supposed to show up and he never did. Or it's like where he just completely failed and she had to do the whole mission by himself. He's in the show. It's like, oh man, it's like no. See what happened was I was on my way there. But then my flight got overbooked, and I refused to fly coach. I will not let my public see me like that. And it just shows the flashback is just him flirting with a lady at the bar, the airport bar, so he just never made his flight. There's another one she calls him out. He's like, I clearly set that alarm to 6 a.m. Cuts to him sleeping in bed with the alarm set to 6 p.m. It's just flashing 6 p.m. It's just like, oh man, it's so funny. It's one of those like, hey, he's terrible. Like, but he also has like that ego of like, oh, everybody knows who I am because I'm so awesome and I'm so great and everybody knows me and loves me and you all know who I am. And then, like at one point, like he goes to leave, like he goes to leave the bar or whatever, and like he like skips the valet lines, runs straight to the valet. He's like, hey, give me my car. Can go get my car. And I won't wait. Like he's like he won't wait to get his car and make the valet go get his car first. He skips the line. And everybody in line starts yelling on someone to get back. It's like, oh, fine. She starts throwing headshots. Fine, you can all have an autograph. You know, just starts throwing headshots. Start throwing those headshots at him, and none of them want. One of the guys like, what? I don't want this. And it's so funny. It's so funny. Like, dude's like legit completely oblivious to how much people actually hate him and just how stupid he is, just terrible he is at his job. He's completely oblivious to it. But like, you know what it is? I just made some. He's a lot like Johnny Bravo, but like he's like a combination of Johnny Bravo and Archer. Like how Archer's like bad at his job, but also can pull it off. It's like everyone keeps telling Archer how terrible he is, but he's like but Archer somewhat admits it. It's like has the obliviousness of Johnny Bravo, and like almost and kind of like the body of Johnny Bravo, like the physique of Johnny Bravo, and almost like the movement style, kind of like he kind of the way he kind of moves and does stuff is kind of like Johnny Bravo, but it's also like has the elements of Archer where it's like, yeah, sure, he like fails his way upward almost. It's like where he'll like completely fail a mission or be doing something completely wrong or just get completely lost, but somehow still comes out on top at the end, like somehow still manages to pull it off, still wins. And like it's funny, like this whole thing is like clearly played off as like, oh yeah, like as a giant joke. It's like honestly, it was an interview about Rob Zombie. He was like talking about it, and it's like, yeah, it's basically like X-rated, like what was it, X-rated Scooby Doo almost. It was like it's more like an R-rated Looney Tunes because it sits of like everything's wacky and intense and gory and graphic and like really crazy, but it's also like just played for laughs, like a Saturday morning cartoon vibe to it. Like there's constant like theme songs and like chase music and like all this crazy stuff, and like one point like. So the main story is like this lady, Dr. Satan. That's what it is. This guy, Dr. Satan, who was like used to be like was like a nerd that went to high school with Beasto and Susie, and like Beasto, I guess Beasto just like used to beat him up all the time. So he's like, oh yeah, he wants to get revenge. Like so saying like, oh, he gets revenge on his bully, but it's like the guy who's changed his name, changed his name to Dr. Satan. He's this evil genius. Like his evil lair is like in the center of the earth, inside of King Kong's body. And like it's brought up in like one of the passing scenes, like a newspaper flies by the screen or whatever, and like one of the headlines is like about Dr. Satan. But if you also look down like under that one, there's also a story about how King Kong's body is missing, and it turns out Dr. Satan stole King Kong's body, made his evil lair, and it's like in the center of the earth, and his evil lair set inside King Kong's giant body, and like has all these has a super long elevator that goes down to it with this really like boring elevator operator, and it's like this old guy like tries to make small talk with him every time they go down, but no one wants to listen to him. Like everybody's like, oh my god, yeah, yeah. No one cares. But there's all these like neon signs and like glowing lights. And it's like, oh, Dr. Satan's lair, like 200 more feet. And this one is like, if you lived here, you'd be home by now. And it's so stupid. There's all that stuff. And it's like Dr. Satan's also like at the same time, it's like Dr. Satan, how Beasto's super incompetent. Dr. Satan's also the same way. Like he's just wacky, cartoony, like completely inept cartoon villain that also happens to be able to like pull off these giant, insane like should be world-ending like schemes, but somehow like he's not good at it, but still fails his way to getting through it. And the whole point is like he wants to obtain literally all the sudsy powers of hell, and like that is like that part honestly cracks me because it's explained with like through this like almost schoolhouse rock style song of like what his people plan is, but it's the like all the music is done by Hard and Firm, which I feel bad because I didn't look this up, but it's Chris Hardwick and I forgot what the other guy's name is, but like they do all the music for this movie and like all the songs are just like jokey and like cartoonish and almost like schoolhouse rock vibe to them. And it's like in order to pull off his plan, he has to find the woman with the devil's mark, which is the 666, on them and marry her by the time the clock strokes midnight on a full moon or something like that. And if he does, if he makes her his unholy bride, he'll obtain all the sudsy powers. He'll be transmogrified, and he'll obtain all the sudsy powers of hell. Once again, never explain why the powers of hell are sudsy. Like everything else kind of makes sense. Like okay, yeah, kind of run with it. They never explain why the powers of hell are sudsy. There's no explanation for that whatsoever. They just kind of run with it, and it's hilarious. But also, Dr. Satan has his gorilla henchman, who's like has a British accent for some reason, because like he just took a regular gorilla and put a smart screw in his brain, so it gave him the ability to speak English and like he like advanced motor skill, like made him more human like motor skills stuff, but he's still a gorilla, still the body of a gorilla. And he was just like, if it wasn't for me, if I didn't put that smart screw in your brain, you wouldn't be able to do anything. It's like something about like because he's like mocking Dr. Satan about his failures, and he threatens to send him back to the jungle. Oh yeah, one more crack like that, and I'll send you back to the jungle. And the henchman goes, not the jungle, not the jungle. There's no cable in the jungle. It's just like it's just funny. It's gorilla is like. He's smarter than Dr. Satan, could easily beat Dr. Satan, but because Dr. Satan made him what he is and he's afraid of going back to the jungle, he listens to him. Like, it's the only control Dr. Satan has over him is that he doesn't want to go back to the jungle. It's so fun. It's so stupid. But, yeah, so long story short, he has, like, all these, like, spy cameras almost, like, they're, what is I'm looking for? Like, hidden surveillance cameras that are, like, disguised as bats, which... Honestly, I don't even know why. I was like, man, what that makes no sense. But they pull it off because in the beginning they mentioned this exterminators. Like, oh yeah, I'm just here to spray for the bats. And it turns out that the bats are from Dr. Satan. So like they do like pull it together. It never becomes like a huge story plot or anything. But it's like, oh, this guy's spraying for bats, and all the bats are here because they're cameras. But also it's like not a major plot. But it's also like, in case anyone questioned this, here writing this off just so there's no questions of why this is happening. What's the point of this useless scene? Which at the end of the day, they're still pretty useless, but it also like, it's there if you need it. If you're truly a stickler for details, it's there, but it also doesn't have to be. But yeah, he ends up finding that the lady with the mark of the beast is Velvet Von Black. It was like this stripper named Velvet Von Black who has like this like almost like vaudeville intro song, like kind of barbershop quartet-y. And Velvet Von Black. It's awesome. But she's also voiced by Rosario Dawson, who's like really dope, dude. She's hilarious in this. It's so fucking funny. Because her whole thing is she's just like super like just like brass and just doesn't give a fuck and like just super like whatever, just straight to the point. Like he's Dr. Satan sends his henchman I forgot what his henchman's guy's name is. Fuck, I forgot the girl's name, but like he sends him to go kidnap her and she just keeps calling him a monkey and like just dissing him the whole time and just talking trash the whole time. It's like your monkey's like, man, please. Like he's like super like what's the word, sophisticated and like dignified and like trying to get her to be more like he's way more classy than her. She's like, whoa, he's just trying to get her to class it up, and she just keeps talking shit. She's like super hood. It's so fucking funny, dude. But it's like at the same time when he goes to kidnap her, like Beasto was like going to the back to talk to Velvet Black. He like falls in love with her. He goes to talk to her and like he goes to her dressing room and like he opens the door and like the gorilla's like trying to like grab her and leave, like trying to pull her away, and she's like trying to hold on to the counter and they both look at him. He's like, is this a bad time? And they just blank stare at him. So Beasto just closes the door and walks away. It's like she's clearly being kidnapped by a gorilla, but Beasto's an idiot, so he does nothing. He just walks away and lets it happen. Then eventually, like he like tracks her down, but he goes to Susie X for help because he like trying to find information on where she is and what happened and why she got kidnapped or whatever. Who's behind all that? So he goes to Susie X for help, who's on her own separate mission of like stealing Hitler's head Apparently, like she goes in like this Nazi, like it's like Nazi zombie slash werewolf compound, like Nazi werewolf. She's like undercover as a Nazi werewolf and steals Hitler's head, which is apparently Hitler's head's still alive, but it's in a jar. It's like Hitler's severed head is like alive in a jar, and she steals it, and then she gets chased by these zombie Nazis, which also have their own like theme song slash chase song, which is hilarious. And, like the song just basically just describes what's happening. It's like, hey, check out that bunch of zombies. I think they're Nazis. That one has a tongue. It was like they're riding motorcycles, chasing after them on motorcycles, and like one of his tongues hanging out of his mouth, and it's just like all this stupid shit. And it's like one point, it's like, why does a zombie need a scarf? Just one of them driving by has a scarf. And then like she rides over the back of his car and jumps a train. It's like, oh man, it's like, was it Sweet Bleeding Christ? She fucking jumps the train. Like the zombies, like they don't jump it, they just crash. Oopsie, hundreds of people dead. Oh no, here comes more of them. It's just narrating the zombie chase, which straight up just reminds me of a Scooby-Doo chase scene. It's like the kind of like upbeat, funny, happy music while being chased, but also like it's just completely out of place in this scene. Like should be completely out of place, but it just fits perfectly. It's just really comedic vibe. Like it fits because the whole vibe of the movie is comedic, but also it's just like like this Saturday morning, like 70s Scooby-Doo Saturday morning cartoon vibe about the whole thing, but it's all like insane and intense and like giant machine guns and stuff. And like eventually like the zombies catch up to her and they surround her, and like her and her robot Murray just start gunning them down. You start gunning. What was it? Zombie Nazis getting shot to ribbons. And it's just like every time they show up, that song starts playing. And it's so funny. Like later on in the movie, like towards the end, they show up again. They like catch up with her again, and it's just zombie Nazis standing by a wall now. Just like it narrates everything the Nazis do, and then like eventually there's like, oh yeah, like the catcher's like, oh yeah, time to face the second coming of the Third Reich. The second coming of the Third Reich. And it's just like wait, wouldn't the second coming of the Third Reich just be the first coming of the Fourth Reich? And it's just like all these like zombies like from the grave coming up out of the grave just go back into their graves. Like, oh yeah, just go back into their graves. It's like, what? No. She's trying to confuse her. She's like, no, fine. Soldiers of either the second coming of the Third Reich, or the Fourth Reich, however you want to look at it, just rise from the dead. All these zombies come up. It's so stupid. Like, in the end, well, not the end, but eventually, like the whole, like they finally figure out what Dr. Satan's whole plan is. And like they realize he's there, like the kid the nerdy kid from high school, went to high school, whenever Steve Wachowski, and like they eventually realize, oh, that's that guy. And I'm like, I used to beat that guy up all the time. He's no problem. We could easily stop him. But then like when they're supposed to go break up his wedding to Velvet Von Black, it just sets up like the prom scene from Carrie. Beasto's idea is just to dump a bucket of blood on him. It's just like straight up rips off the scene from Carrie. And which of course there's a song about that, and it's just why'd you have to rip off Carrie? It's just like, what is it, with the spooky music and the split screen thing? It just calls out all the stuff that it cleared. Did you ask for something, or even Stephen King that you could rip off, if you could rip off Carrie? It's like, did you even ask for permission to rip off this movie? Like, also it's like, it's just like the most unnecessary scene. Like it completely makes no sense. Like everything else in the movie, well, not everything in the movie makes sense. Like a lot of his movie doesn't make sense. A lot of it's stupid. But it's like the Carrie scene is just like, why? Like literally, just I get it. Yeah, the song says why, but it's like, really, why? Just why was any of this necessary? So pointless, so stupid. But eventually, Dr. Satan gets all the powers of hell. Like he gets transmogrified. And he's just turns into like a giant demon version of himself. It's like massive demon, and he starts rampaging through the city. But his entire rampage through, like him destroying buildings and just crushing cars and stepping on people and like just ripping airplanes and half stuff, is all set to the Benny Hill theme. So it's all just like slightly sped up, fast paced Benny Hill, which is hilarious. Like that's one of my favorite like comedy bits in general. Just that theme song with things slightly sped up and just insane things happening and wacky things, and none of it makes any sense. But this one's just like a massive rampage. Like basically, he's a kaiju. Basically, it's like Godzilla destroying. It's like if Godzilla started destroying the city, and they just played the Benny Hill theme during Godzilla scene. Like it would be out of place, but it'd be funny. And like this, like in this movie, it's not really out of place. It's just more comedic than it is like out of place. Like it's not out of place at all. This movie makes perfect sense because everything in this movie is insane, but it's just hilarious. Like just completely out of left field. It's so great, dude. It's so funny. It's so funny. But yeah, and then like eventually, because he left Velvet Von Black at the altar, it leads to a showdown. Actually, before it even gets to that, before that, Beasto, like when he finally, I think, gets meet us with Susie and like they give the information to find out, oh, it's Dr. Satan. He goes to get backup. He goes to find his old homies. He goes to get backup. He goes to his old hood to get backup. He's like, man, which like the lead guy is voiced by Danny Trejo. And he basically looks like Yosemite, like he looks like basically like a cholo version of Yosemite Sam. Like he's just super short with a bandana over his eyes and like tiny, but he looks all like he's all like swollen and stuff. It's hilarious. He's like, yeah, man, you just disappeared without telling us anything. We thought you were dead. We've been trying to call you. It's good. Like they've been calling him and he never answers his phone. It's like, oh yeah, sorry, I just broke my phone. Like when he shows up, it's like, hey, they just shoot at him because they're mad because he just completely abandoned them and never talked to them again. Just never came back. Now he shows up when he needs something. But yeah, dude, it's so funny because eventually, like, Dr. Satan like steals Susie because he had a crush on her in high school. So now he's like giant. He like steals her and runs off and leaves Velvet Von Black at the altar. So Velvet Von Black is mad. She's like, no, she's gonna go pull up get revenge. Beasto's going to take some down to get his sister. Murray's there with him, back up, and he got his homies with him. So he's all on his lowrider, riding after Dr. Satan, all ready to go beat him down. And like it's funny, they pull up on him, and like Velvet Von Black starts calling out Susie. He's like, "Put down the stanko." He's like, "What? Who you calling a stanko? You stank ass deaf hoe." It's so fucking stupid. But ultimately leads into like this giant cat fight between Velvet Von Black and Susie. And everybody's just standing around watching. It's like the whole cat fight is like set to this polka song. It's like at the cat fight, cat fight, cat fight, cat fight, cat fight. It was just hilarious. Like this is all like polka theme for it, and like this accordion and everything. It's so funny. It's like super bloody, like brutal. Like at one point, Velvet hits Susie with this giant lava lamp, and it's like by the end of it, they're just all bloody and broken, and like Susie X ends up winning. But then Dr. Satan steps on Velvet Von Black. It's like, ah, yeah, he doesn't need her anymore. He already got the powers of hell, so he steps on her. But then by crushing his bride, by crushing his unholy bride, he loses all his power. He loses all his evil powers, like his demonic power. He loses all the powers of hell because of something, blah, blah. It's like the Satanic Handbook. Somebody reads it out. Like, it's basically like, this movie breaks, I also forgot to mention that, this movie breaks the fourth wall a lot. Like, there's a shit ton of fourth wall breaks that are just like, direct talking to the audience, or like the Beasto directly calling at that point. Like even at that point with the Satanic Handbook, Beasto directly calls out the writers. Like that's the best you can come up with, and by you I mean the writers. And it's cuts to the writing room, to the writers' room, and it's Shakespeare, Edgar Allan Poe, and Mark Twain. She's like, it just has them as the writers, and like Shakespeare's like holding a sign that says they're on strike. And it's like that's the best you can come up with. By you I mean the writers. Are just hilarious. Cuts to that. But then ultimately it just ends with like Dr. Satan going back to normal, like turning back to his normal self, normal himself. He's like, no, I've seen enough movies to know. Because like he's like, the nerd can always knock out the bullet, and he just punches Beasto and it does nothing. So Beasto just beats him senseless and then just like launches him. He puts on this giant boot and just kicks him across town like comedically. And then like eventually they've been everybody's cheering and everything, and it just cuts to like the zombie Nazis are still there. And he's just staring at like, looks over and Beasto's homies are there. And and it's like, what are you looking at? He's like, nada, mine homies. Get it? Because that's Spanish. And it's like, they just start chasing the Nazis just run off. They drive off and the homies just start chasing after him in Beasto's car, and he's all running to Dr. Satan as they're leaving. It's so stupid. But then eventually, the ending, like, spoiler, but honestly, it's not that big a spoiler. The spoiler, the ending makes no sense. The ending is, like, not that deep. The story's not that deep. Doesn't ruin it, but, like, spoiler, the end of the movie is Beasto's like on a talk show talking about the whole thing that went down, talking about the whole like situation, talking about that whole adventure. And it's almost like his new project. It's like, oh, I heard you've been working on something new. It's like, oh, it's just a little musical project with a little band known as Loverboy. And then like the movie just ends with them with them singing everybody's working for the weekend. And it's so funny, dude. But also, I also forgot to mention. So I think his name is Captain Spaulding, the clown from the Rob Zombie movies, one of the Rob Zombie movies. He has a cameo in it, and then Rob Zombie's in it, and I'm pretty sure it's Rob Zombie from like the Devil's Rejects or whatever. I haven't seen a lot of Rob Zombie movies, so I don't know, but it's clearly Rob Zombie has a cameo like in the bar with all the horror movie characters in it. He has a cameo in it, and like he's in there, and then like the movie like ends like this Loverboy song, and then the credits, and then there's a post credit scene where where it's like, all right, there's like the elevator operator's like, oh, hey, like he cracks a couple jokes, he's like, all right, movie's over. You're not leaving? All right, fine. And like zips off his costume. Turns out he's like this lady just in there, and it's like this thing where it's like this cowboy like western bar where it's like, oh yeah, well, and there's this band playing, just so stupid. And it's like it just shows like everybody from the movie, like all the characters from the movie, are just like at craft services getting food or like posting up at the bar or whatever. And Rob Zombie just cuts off the song. It's like, all right, that's it. Poof. Like he just runs in with he just walks in with a shotgun and shoots the guys playing. It's like, all right, that's it. This movie's over. Get out. And he just kicks everybody out. But yeah, dude, like overall, it's pretty funny. Like you can find it online. I don't know if you can. If you can't, it's on Amazon right now for like $7, dude. It's worth the buy. Like it's not. I'm not like, oh, it's the greatest movie ever. It's like the most detailed story, the deepest story, or the greatest thing ever. Like it's stupid. If you like dumb movies, just really dumb, over the top, unnecessary, like, and I'm not even talking like South Park level. Like South Park is like deep writing. Like they're funny, but they're also like deep in their parodies and like makes you really think. This movie is literally just you want to put on something stupid and mindless and laugh at it occasionally, laugh at it, and without having to think. This is the movie for you. Like it's definitely funny. I saw this once, and it was like I saw this once like years ago, and like I was like 19 or 20, so I was like, oh man, you know, it's one of those things like it's one of those movies where like you're either gonna really love this, or you're gonna think it's really hilarious, or you're gonna absolutely hate it because there's no middle ground. It's really stupid and over the top. Ironically, I saw like this a while back, but Redman had posted like clips from it on like his social media because he was watching posting clips from his social media talking about how much he loved it and it was like how much he was enjoying it. And I was like, oh man, that's hilarious, man. I remember watching that movie. Like I seen it before that. I was like, man, I don't remember watching that movie. Movie's dumb as hell, man. I can't believe Redman's watching that, but that's awesome. But yeah, like overall, I was like definitely stupid. Definitely it has slight spooky season vibes in the sense of like it's set in a monster universe and has like the horror movie cameos. So I figured it'd be a great way to start off this run of spooky season episodes since I'm not like really into the not necessarily I'm not in the spooky season. I'm just not really in this horror movies. I'm not really in the whole horror genre, like super into the whole spooky things, but I am into like comedy, so it's like slightly spooky comedy. I feel like it works for me, definitely fits more of my vibe and more of what what I usually talk about or what you usually aim for, but without going over the top, But yeah, definitely not family movie, not family friendly whatsoever. Do not let the kids watch this. There's a lot of nudity in this movie. Like it's all animated, but there is like there's an unnecessary amount. Like this movie was live action. I don't think it would have gotten made, or like it would have been NC-17. Like if it wasn't animated, it would have been pushed way beyond R, dude. It's so intense and so unnecessary. Like the nudity in it is way too much, but it's still funny. Like a lot of it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, like it's played up because hey, it's animated and we can. Like that's why we did it. But yeah, also, oh man, I almost completely forgot to mention, fucking Tom Kenny like does a couple voices in the movie. Like Tom Kenny, voice of SpongeBob, great voice actor. He does a couple voices in this movie and they're hilarious. Like it's just funny to like hear him in something like this or just realize, oh man, that's the voice of SpongeBob. What the fuck is he doing in this? Like, just complete opposite of what a SpongeBob show would be like Nickelodeon, what you expect him to be and expect that voice actor to do, but it's hilarious. It's so awesome, dude. I recommend checking it out if you got the time. Definitely great watch for spooky season if you're not in the super spooky, but you still want to kind of fit the vibes. And as always, thanks for checking out the episode. Please like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, tell your friends, do whatever, just follow me on social media, on Twitter at Talk.6, on Facebook at Talking.6. And yeah, thanks guys. Got more spooky season episodes coming on the way. But thanks for checking this one out.